Hi, it's Heath from Heath Smith Photography. We're going to go over Aperture. What does it mean? How does it work? And how does it affect your camera? And how do you get those shots that everyone else gets? Let's get started. First, Aperture. Aperture is also called sometimes f-stop. Aperture is something that's built into a lens and or in a point and shoot into the camera, which is part of the lens. Simply, all it is a circle that's opening and closing depending on your f-stop number. A higher f-stop number, i.e. f16, f18, f22, and reduces the amount of light going into your camera. So your camera has to either compensate in a couple different ways, either bringing up the shutter speed to get up to the right amount of light coming into the camera, or your ISO. If you go the opposite way and you go over into the f5.6, f4, 2.8, or 1.8, even lower, what happens is it lets even more light, the opening gets bigger, more light in the camera, which means you have to either go up in shutter speed or lower an ISO to get the same exposure. What does that do for you? Well, at f22, you have a lot more depth of field. You're not gonna have any kind of bokeh, out of focus area in your picture. However, you're gonna get starburst effects unless you come down lower in the Aperture, f8-ish. If you go all the way to the opposite side, f2.8, 1.8, f2, that kind of thing, your depth of field is going to be dramatically smaller. I'm talking centimeters. The distance from your nose to your ear, your nose will be in focus, your ear will be completely out of focus. That's how sharp of a depth of field it will be. It also depends on the focal length of the lens. If you're using a 35mm 1.8, it might not be that shallow. But if you use, an example, 70 to 200, 2.8, the depth of field will be even shorter even though it's at a 2.8. So how does this all play in effect? Well, if you're wanting to shoot indoor sports, you want to capture motion. You want to get that portrait of something and have that shallow depth of field, you're going to need to go to the f1.8, f2.8, the lowest setting you can do on your lens. Most people have a kit lens, which is 18 to 55, and the lowest setting is 3.5 at 18mm range. You're going to want to shoot at that end of the focal length. Landscape or cityscape, and you want to get a lot of things in focus, you're going to want to go to the opposite end. You're going to want to go to the f10, f12, f16 area. Which that's going to do is it's going to create a larger amount of focal length. So everything can be in focus. You're not going to have as much in blur. It'll look nicer. However, like I said, if you go up too high, you're starting to get into that starburst effect. And most people like that, and it's sometimes desired, and some people don't like that. So you have to find that right balance. When you change all your apertures, the higher you go up in your aperture, f22 range, you're going to have to increase your shutter speed, i.e. go lower from 1/100th of a second to 50th of a second, 30th of a second, 1 whole second maybe, to get the same exposure as that. Or you raise your ISO from ISO 100 to 200 to 400 to 800 depending on what you do. This is going to give you the correct exposure for your camera. Most people would use your aperture setting on your camera and let everything be picked by it. However, once you start using your camera and using it in manual mode, besides that, if you have any more questions about aperture and how it works, go ahead and leave a comment down below and I'll try and get back to you as soon as possible. Stay tuned for more informative information about your camera and how to use it correctly. This is Heath Smith, and thank you for watching Heath Smith Photography.